Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and this is Potato Latkes. Well, today we're getting into the Hanukkah spirit and whipping up a batch of potato latkes on the grill. Now, potato latkes are these beautifully crunchy on the outside, creamy on the inside, potato pancakes that are pan-fried and topped with any number of toppings. Applesauce and sour cream are common. Today we're gonna have some cold smoked salmon lox. We'll also have some salmon roe caviar. There's so much to get into, and I've got a few great tips and techniques to get you through the process, so let's jump right in. So the bulk of the potato latke is potato and onion. In fact, we're doing 2 parts potato to 1 part onion today. I'm gonna get these peeled, and then we're gonna break them down, shred them up in the food processor. I've got some russet potatoes here that have a pretty thick skin, so I'm gonna take most of that skin off, but I kinda like a little bite of skin here and there, so I'm not gonna do a great job of peeling these. I'm gonna leave just a little bit behind. So I'm gonna make this thing fit down the top of the food processor. So I'm gonna slice these down to the proper diameter. You could also do this on a box grater. Absolutely do it by hand. I'm gonna make it a little bit easier and do it in the Vitamix today though. So I'm gonna use the small shred side of this grating plate here on the Vitamix. And we're gonna work our potatoes down. And then we're gonna follow that up with our onions. So from here, I wanna get a bunch of this excess moisture out. We're gonna dump this onto a towel. And we're gonna squeeze a bunch of that water out of there. So let's gather up the corners here. I'm gonna use a wooden spoon to help kind of squeeze all of this moisture out. Tie our towel up here. And we can kind of work this by hand. Just cinch that down. Really get all that water out. Now the other thing we're squeezing out with the water is a bunch of this potato starch. So I'm gonna give this just a minute to let that starch settle all the way down at the bottom, because we're gonna include that starch in the actual latke. We're just gonna pour off the liquid from the top here in a minute. Now while we're waiting on that water and starch to separate out, I'm gonna mince up some chives to throw in there as well. Looking for 2 tablespoons. So we started with a pound of potatoes, a half pound of onion, like I said, 2 tablespoons here of chives. This is going to be a batch of 6 latkes, so you can always scale this up for a larger crowd. Let's go ahead and pour this water off now. When you get to that starchy white stuff at the bottom, you can stop. And you can see all that starch that's left behind. That's gonna help to make these latkes really creamy and to help them hold together as well. So we're also gonna need 1 egg for this recipe. I'll go ahead and whisk this stuff together now. Look how starchy that is already. Really thicken it up. In addition to that, we've got 2 tablespoons of matzo meal. That same goodness you make matzo balls out of. Let's add in our chives. And then we're gonna work the potatoes and onions in by hand and hit them with a little seasoning. Break that up a little bit. Let's get this coated. Don't be afraid if this looks a little dry, because it is going to really rehydrate. It'll be super creamy on the inside once they're actually fried. Like I said though, there's a lot of potatoes, we need some seasoning. So today we're gonna use our Cattleman's Grill Lone Star brisket rub, which is salt, pepper, roasted garlic, and celery seed. Salt and pepper is probably most common as far as seasonings go for latkes anyway, so this kind of fits that. So at this point we need this to sit here, and we need that matzo to kind of soak up some of the egg, some of the moisture, and hydrate. You want to let this sit for a good like 10 minutes before we actually fry them. And today we're cooking on the Yoder Smokers YS640s pellet grill. It's set to 500 degrees right now with kind of a unique setup. We'll talk about it when we get the door open, but we're burning some hickory pellets. I have my diffuser plate in, but I've removed the door. That way we've got this area where you can see the flame lipping all the way up, where we can heat up our oil and do our frying. But we also have this indirect side should we need to move things off to the side to cool them down. And to further concentrate that heat on the left side of the grill, we'll push the damper all the way in. Now I don't have any chicken schmaltz to fry in today, but I do have some beef tallow. So we're gonna use a mixture of both beef tallow and oil so that we're not overwhelming the flavor of the latkes with the beef tallow. We wanna have the entire bottom of this skillet covered. It's kind of a shallow fry kind of situation. So after about 10 minutes, you can see how much moisture is showing up in here. It looked a lot drier at first, but everything's kind of rehydrated, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So temping our oil and tallow now, we are getting right up where we need to be, about 425 range, because that oil temp's gonna drop a lot once we hit it with these cold potatoes. So we're gonna do a quarter cup at a time. Gonna press down. Now for me, my technique I like to do here is I'll press down the edges, but I like to leave that center puffed up a little bit. That way you get that creamy center and the crispiness around the edges. So with the oil this hot, we should get a really nice kind of darker than golden brown finish that's really just gonna have like shattering crunchiness to it around the edges and really creamy center. That's the goal here. Let's take a peek here, give a flip and see how we're doing. That's great. That's really nice. Wouldn't hurt if it went just a little bit darker, but I like where it's at. Look at those lacy, crispy edges right there. That's beautiful. So about 3 minutes per side at this temperature. Obviously the oil temperature's dropped quite a bit at this point. So once these come out, we like the color and everything. We'll give the oil just a little bit of time to recover, maybe pop a little more tallow in there for the next round. Yep, these are looking perfect. Time to pull them out. I'm gonna land these on a wire rack over a sheet pan just to let that excess oil drip off. And you know, paper towels work great for that as well, but if you leave them sitting on a paper towel for long enough, they're not gonna be crunchy anymore. The great thing about this is if we want to, we can actually pick this whole thing up, slide it right into the grill to keep it warm while we do the next round. Managed to squeeze out a bonus 7th latke out of this batch. Not mad about it. Yeah, these are looking really nice now. Remove these off to the rack. Let that oil drain off. We'll head back to the table, start putting together all our toppings. So I'm gonna slice up some of my cold smoked salmon here, just real thin. I made this from scratch. You guys, we have a video on it. You can go check it out. We'll be sure to put the video link in this video description. Takes a few days to get done, but it's really easy. A few days of curing, a few hours of smoking, and there's not much to it. So sour cream's pretty typical topping, but since I have some of this horseradish creme fraiche left over from our prime rib video that we just released, I'm gonna use that on top instead. Very similar to creme fraiche sour cream, but obviously a ton more flavor. Let's put a little bit of salmon on top of these. I'm going full savory mode on these today. You guys know I'm a savory boy. Do just a little bit more on top to help some of these toppings stick. A little bit of red onion. Because there's not enough onion in there already. How about some salty, briny capers? Ooh, and then top it off with a little bit of coho salmon roe. Salmon caviar right here. Salty little burst of goodness. This stuff's actually pretty affordable. Head over to like Whole Foods, they typically have some. And finish it off with just one little shake of our everything bagel seasoning on top. And I'm calling it good. Let's get it. No utensils necessary. Can you guys hear the crunch? It was crazy crunchy. Like I got it all over my face. Man, that potato, so crunchy on the outside, smooth and creamy on the inside. Check out the inside of this thing. I don't know how much of this you can see. There's tons of moisture in there still, especially with all these toppings. Great contrast in texture, flavor-wise, full-on savory mode. I love the way the creaminess of that creme fraiche breaks up the saltiness of the other things that are going on. Got to be careful not to over salt these latkes, especially when you start putting stuff on top like cold smoked salmon and capers and of course the salmon roe. But that salmon roe, God, if you guys haven't tried this out yet, it just burst of salt water flavor into your mouth. This thing is so dang good. And hey, this is just the way I did it. You want to throw brisket on top of yours? Go for it. If you want to put some applesauce and honey on there, can't go wrong. Endless opportunities. Give it a try. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoy the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to atbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.